One more thing real quick. As I had said when I looked at the plans, I believe the plans had said that this length here was supposed to be 21 and a half or something like that, 20 and a half inches. And I believe earlier I said that I wasn't going to make my piece solely off of replicating this piece. And I'm glad I didn't because, like I said, I think the plans dictate 21 inches. This particular piece here is only, I believe this one is only 17. So if I would have just blindly replicated that length here, this would actually be a little bit longer than I'd want it to be. Like I explained on the fuselage, I didn't want it too long to where it would interfere with my manual trim for the aileron. So again, if you go this route, don't base your setup off of my measurements. This appears like it's going to work for me. Like I said, we won't know for sure until I actually fly the airplane and find out if this is mechanically doable from a strength standpoint. But if you go this route, this length can be any length that you want. You don't have to necessarily duplicate exactly what I have here. Make it so that it works for your situation on your aircraft. All right? All right. Moving on. All right, so now I have moved on to making this curved piece here with the notches in it. This is, it's drawing 42, but again, this is for the RV6 because this is the manual flap setup for the 6, which I am incorporating into my -7. So I'm working on this piece here. And they give you dimensions for different things, and they give you 2 radius. One is 6.5 inch, one is 8 inch. And all I had done to do that was I have my piece of bare stock here. You can see I have it taped down so it won't move. And then I've got my I always forget it. I can't remember if this is a compass or a protractor. But anyway, here's my deal. And of course I measure from point to point the 6.5 inches. I locate where I want that arch to fall on my aluminum, and then I scribe it, or I mark it on the aluminum, the 6.5 inch radius, and then using that same pivot point. So wherever I anchor the tip of this, I anchor it somewhere into my cardboard to get this first arch. And then I remeasure point to point to the 8 inch dimension, which is shown on the drawing. And I use that exact same pivot point. And then I draw out the second arc. So that's where I am so far. And again, you have to use the same anchor point, the same pivot point for your tool, and make sure that the aluminum plate doesn't move. And then you can take a ruler and just check between the lines at different places to make sure that it's the correct width that it needs to be. So now that I have that, I'm going to cut this out and figure out what to do about notches and everything else that's drawn on this drawing. So moving on. Howdy everyone. Alrighty, so you can see that I now have the manual flap mechanism in the fuselage. Nothing is permanently bolted. I have this block here bolted, and I've got the 2 end blocks bolted with my bogus nuts. Obviously I have my sleeve in place, and I've got my new stick in place. These have not been riveted. And again, I don't know if this will show up, but I've got the slot made here. So I've got it, again, real world, mounted into the aircraft. Here's my mounting plate that I made. Now, I have it sitting on top. That may change. but I'll get to that when I get to it. But for now, I made use of the existing nut plate and hole that were in here. In order to do that and have some kind of a decent wall edge distance here, I had to bevel the edge, this entire length of the support. This is 1/4 inch aluminum. This 1/4 inch plate along this edge on the bottom side, I had to sand it down at an angle because you can see it rides up on this part here. So this is flat and this runs uphill, so I had to chamfer that edge along the bottom so I could move the block over and get some good edge distance here. So now this is in place. I've got it tightened down, and I have my new latch piece roughly made, and I say roughly because it's not at the correct length, and of course I'm not going to have this dagger point on the tip of it. What I've done was I've had this through the slot of the control, and I had it C-clamped into the mounting bracket here. And then all I did was move this arm up and down and let it ride along this piece. And it basically moved this piece around until it found where it needs to be. Having done that, I scribed a line on the bottom. I think you could see it there. That black line that's scribed on the bottom is the new angle that I have to cut the bottom of this piece. I am not going to cut this piece. I'm not going to cut it on the line because that's going to make it too short. I just want to duplicate this angle down here. Now when I do that, it sits this piece at an odd angle in relation to these brackets here. So this piece in my hand fits in between these two brackets. With the bottom cut at that angle as drawn with the line, this piece kind of sits at an odd angle. It kind of sits back like this. And that's because, as I said, I wanted to make use of the existing nut plate that's underneath here. In order to use that existing nut plate, this piece had to be brought up forward a little bit. And because this is brought up forward, this piece now has to be angled kind of back and still match with the slot in here. Now, of course, there's a lot of remedies for that. I could have had this plate moved back. I could have moved the groove, the slot that's cut in here, I could have moved it further down. But I wanted this piece to be as far aft as I could. I didn't want this piece out here with this sticking out of it. I wanted it as far back as I can get it so it's more between the seats than sticking out here. So making use of the existing nut plate was a good idea. That's a good location for me. It keeps everything nice and aft. I put the slot in the stock location as drawn per the plans, referencing off of your center line down here. And now I'm just going to make the two work. And in order to do that, I've got to cut the bottom of this on that as shown by the black line. So let me do that, and then I'll come back and fit it and see how we look. All right, so now back at the airplane, I have the bottom of this piece here cut so that it fits flat inside of those L brackets. It fits flat against this mounting plate here. With that in place, I can now move this control and I get no rubbing. And what I do when I move the control, I look at the gap Stand by. I got to switch glasses here so I can see this super tiny screen. All right, so now when I move the control, I get no rubbing. And what I do, which probably won't show up on the camera, I look at this what do I want to call this? The slot that I made in the handle. I look at the ends of that slot in relation to the forward and aft edge of this piece and make sure that it doesn't rub either on this slot or the slot that's underneath. So as I move the control, it does move. When it's down in this position, it's closer to this front edge of the slot. When it's up, it's closer to this aft edge, which is fine. As long as it doesn't rub, that's fine. And I have this piece here. This is a ready-made piece that I had, that I actually bought. I just have it in place to give me an idea of how high this handle needs to swing. You can see that the notch is here for full flaps. So just eyeballing that notch, the handle doesn't need to go any higher than basically where it is right now. So that would be the full up, or full, the handle is full up, but the flaps would be fully deployed. So referencing that general height, I can even go higher. I can see that I've got a good gap at this end of the slot where it's closest right now, and then as I move the handle down, I want my handle full down position, the flaps fully retracted, roughly in here. I mean, like, again, I can go to an extreme, and I can see that I've got a good gap here between this end of the slot and this piece. So with it positioned without any interference, and like I said, I've already got this bolted down, making use of these existing nut plates. I'm going to go ahead and C-clamp this here. I'm going to C-clamp it to make sure that this does not move this way. And then I'm going to go ahead and drill through these holes into this to set it in position. So that's what I'm going to do next. And then we'll bolt it all together and see what gives.